Hello and welcome to the Red Mountain Community Church podcast, where you can hear conversations with the people of Red Mountain Community Church as we pursue Jesus together. Each episode highlights what God is doing in someone's life or a specific theme in light of what God has revealed in the Bible. I'm Peter Franson, one of the elders and your fellow seat warmer here at Red Mountain Community Church. My co-host today is Dave Emigh, our pastor of family and community. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
I just had a little seat fart. I know.
I feel like
picked up by the microphone.
Arian's going to have to bleep out a lot of my seat movements. It's a little sticky in here.
All right, so let's dive in to the irresistible question for the episode, which is, if you could be great at any Olympic sport, which would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I've been watching the Olympics and actually breakdancing.
What? Is that an Olympic sport?
It's the newest Olympic sport. Yeah. I watched it for the first time the other night and I was like, I don't think this should be an Olympic sport, but it was so fun.
How do you even judge that? By like how messed up their hair is afterward?
No, there's like techniques and like moves, and it really is like more gymnastic.
I was going to say,
if that's a word.
Yeah.
Because I remember the old school like cardboard and like tracksuits and boom boxes.
Yeah.
The kids will have to look at what a boom box is up. We didn't have the things of today. But watching that was hilarious. Like that was pretty awesome. But like probably true Olympic sport, I would probably say I'd want to be one of those people that do like, I don't know if it's called a decathlon, where you have to do like 10 things or something.
Yeah.
Where you have to run, jump, throw. Like to me, that's like the Olympics. Like that's like old school, legit.
Yeah.
Like I can do a lot of things awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably breakdancing and like the decathlete would be my two choices.
I would go, like, I have no interest in being great at any of these sports. I am interested in the side effect of being great, which is an awesome physique. And so, like, I got to go with the gymnasts.
Okay.
Those dudes that, like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd feel all that cool doing pommel horse. But like the other stuff, like the flips. I'm a big comic book fan. I'm wearing a superhero shirt, and they're always drawn with like these like sculpted abs and bodies
crazy
and stuff.
muscles.
You know? Yeah. And I'm like, I would want to have that physique, and then like wear like a Nightwing costume every week to church. You know?
Just roll in.
Yeah, come in flipping, man. Oh.
See, but that's the problem. I think if I could do that, I would just do that. Like, I'd have to flip into church.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Yeah. That whole thing would, that whole dilemma, bring the dilemma of just my vanity. I would think, if I had a body like that, I would be way too tempted to take every opportunity to show it off. Yeah. So it's just good that I'm not pursuing.
You forgot your sleeves today.
Lifestyle. Anyway, okay. As a reminder, you can message us on Instagram or Facebook with suggestions for fun things that we could do or talk about before the interview. So if you have an idea for an irresistible question, you can go there. But for now, we are going to move things along. Just a little bit ago, Dave and I spent some time talking with Kathleen Cochran, a great conversation just about her life of service in the church and where that came from in her relationship with the Lord, how that developed, and what motivates it. There's a lot of neat stuff going on that I hope you guys will appreciate and enjoy. Here's that conversation for you now. Well, Kathleen, thanks for doing this. This is like one of those, every now and then when I'm interviewing somebody in our church, it's a little extra special for me because it's someone, and you're in this category, it's someone that like I have rubbed elbows with over the years a few times, had like conversations. Maybe there'll be like a stretch of time where we're talking a little bit more frequently, and then that kind of subsides and stuff. So like I've known you and I've interacted with you at various times over the years, had great conversations with you, been blessed by you, but there's still like a lot that I don't know about you. And so I'm like, oh, awesome. Okay. So I get to like...
you get to ask questions.
I know. Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm going to answer them.
That's true. And you have that freedom, but I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
First off, if you could... Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to the Red Mountain Community Church podcast.
Shortest podcast ever.
So if you could give me a snapshot of like how you would describe your current stage of life and just any people or routines that are sort of relevant to that.
Current stage of life is old.
Okay.
Actually, I'm 73.
Okay.
So my current stage of life, I'm been retired from working full time. I was a nurse for 20 years. My kids are all raised. I have grandkids and great grandkids.
Wow.
I'm still pretty active. I paint. I teach art classes.
Oh.
I play my flute in a community band when they pick up. Your parents are in it.
I was just going to ask if they happen to be in that same band.
I've been in the band with them for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, a long time.
Okay, I'm totally going to have to mention that.
No.
I can't. Well, yeah, I can't believe they haven't mentioned that. Yeah. Anyway, okay, go ahead.
I've seen your wife when she shows up for concerts.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the boys, So yes.
Nice.
And let's see, what else do? I do the Naughty Ladies for here at church.
Now that sounds just downright sinful. What is that?
You interviewed Jenny Hulock.
I did, yes.
Many years ago.
Yes, I'm pretending ignorance right now.
I know, I understand that. But we started up, it's Dave's fault.
Oh.
Because he started this, he brought it from Chicago with him.
You did? This is a Dave thing. It's fairly, well, I guess you've been here for a while.
8 years.
Yeah, it's not fairly new. We've been doing it for 7 years.
Wow.
But Kathleen took it to like a whole nother level.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, we have fun. I mean, we have people that come that don't know how to knit or crochet, so I can teach them that. Mm-hmm. And we make prayer shawls that are 15 to 18 inches wide and 60 inches long.
Okay.
A variety of colors, patterns. The only thing that I require is that the pattern cannot be too frilly, because a lot of those shawls will go to men.
Oh.
And I don't think too many guys want to wear a pink frilly shawl. So that's my only request.
Yeah.
And then I turn people loose.
Wow.
And I get some amazing things back.
Wow.
I mean, beautiful shawls, varieties of patterns, and they'll take scraps of yarn and they'll incorporate them in. And so we have all kinds of color combinations, plus the yarn that I get is real different. And they're beautiful. They are beautiful. They're stunning. Yeah,
absolutely.
They are. So.
Wow. I want to come back to that because because when that idea was introduced to me by Ginny, I was immediately fascinated. I'd never heard of this practice, this thing before. So we're going to circle back to that. And if we don't, you guys help me remember. But first, when and how roughly did you first come to faith in Jesus, if you remember?
Are you saying I'm really old?
No. I'm just saying you might when you were really young. If you
no. I was not raised in a Christian home.
Okay.
I was raised in a moral home, taught right from wrong, but not biblically so.
Okay.
So morally, yes. I didn't come to know Christ until I was 20.
Okay.
And Eric was in Vietnam.
Oh.
I had moved back home with my parents, and I had a little girl, and so my oldest daughter, and my mom's neighbor actually went to a Baptist church, and they had gotten a new preacher in who was just really phenomenal. And so she invited my mom and dad to go to church. They went to church a few times and said, why don't you come with? So I did. And it was through them, through that particular church, that I accepted Christ. And then not long after that, I moved to Germany.
Whoa, what?
Well, Eric was in the Army for 20 years.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So he went from Vietnam to Germany the first time.
Wow.
We were extremely fortunate in where God put us. He put us at Merrill Barracks. Eric had started out as a helicopter mechanic and changed over to a chaplain's assistant. So he started to work in the chaplaincy. He was already saved, but really didn't know what it meant to really live for Christ. And, I didn't either. I was brand new to the faith.
Yeah.
And so we had a pair of missionaries that were with Operation Mobilization. They built compartments that went into the Iron Curtain countries, behind the Berlin Wall, where literature and missionaries were restricted. You could die for things like that.
Oh, boy.
They took in Bibles. They smuggled out people. They brought in and did all kinds of amazing things. And they were in our chapel.
Wow.
Because they were American and they had 3 kids. So they lived on the German economy. And we got to be really close friends with them. And it was through them that I learned to memorize scripture. Because Ray said, if you don't know what's there, it can't help you. We memorized whole chapters.
Oh, wow.
So not just verses, but whole chapters.
Wow.
And we did that for 3 years. And then we moved back to the States. And so we moved back and forth, here and there, everywhere. We lived all over the States. We lived in Germany twice, went all over Europe, and just got to meet some amazing people. Didn't really grow a lot because there's a lot of people who know Jesus but don't actually apply him to everyday life.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But so I didn't really grow a lot until I got into precepts.
Okay.
And then I started learning more and learned a lot of stuff.
And that's for those who are not familiar, and you can correct me if I don't have the details right. That is a particular type of Bible study, right?
Precepts is an inductive, intense Bible study. It goes word on word, precept on precept. And when Kay Arthur started it back in the 80s, I think it was almost an unheard of method to study your Bible. But it is very in depth. And if you've never done it, if you like words and you like to study, it's a really good way to study your Bible and to learn what it says and where all of it says it. It's not for everybody, but it is something that I like. I have a mind like an elephant, so things that go in stay there forever.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of strange, but that's the way I'm
That's
created.
awesome. Oh.
Well, it is interesting some days. Sometimes it's not always a plus. So anyway, where was I? So that's kind of how I met Jesus and just started to grow. It took a long time because I was a rather stubborn, determined person. Go figure. And I learned a lot of things with difficulty, some with a lot of unpleasantness. Managed to survive. And here I am.
So at this point now, you're plugged in at Red Mountain. You mentioned already the naughty knitters.
Naughty ladies.
Naughty ladies.
Yes,
oh, it's not naughty knitters.
No, Jenny did that. And, and it just kind of, I think it fell into your brain and stayed there.
Oh, okay.
Which is fine. Not everybody knits. Most gals crochet.
Okay. Which also involves some knots.
Yes. Well,
no?
Stitches. Yes.
Stitches.
Just different kind of stitches.
Okay. All right.
Because knitting is not really knots.
Wow.
It's really not.
Mind blown.
It's you know how to take.
It was the alliteration that was messing with my head.
Oh, okay.
Like, knitting is not really knots. Did I understand that? Did I comprehend that sentence, or
yes,
am I just stuck in
knitting is really not knots. It's pulling thread through one loop through another, and you can do that through crochet.
Okay.
You can do it through knitting. You can do it through Battenberg lace. You can do lots of different things. Handwork is the overall umbrella.
Okay.
Okay. So I call it naughty ladies.
Naughty ladies. Okay.
Yes. Knotty.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Although we can be NAUGHTY, but mostly it's just, and we keep you in stitches.
Okay. Nice. And so, what are some of the other ministries or ways that you're involved in serving at Red Mountain?
I do funerals with Della. I do some of the TLC, the cooking and stuff. Take meals for people. Not a whole lot, but and the funerals I do when I feel like that's something I need to do. I bring in all my silver and stuff and set it up because I think it's important. So when I can, I do that. What else do I do at Red Mountain? I'm no longer in the women's group on Tuesday.
You used to help with weddings.
I used to be the wedding coordinator years ago. Yeah, I was the wedding coordinator and helped get that up and going and sort it out.
Oh, that sounds so stressful.
It was pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on who you work with and what their concept of something is. When that's different, or when their ideas of expediting something is different, it makes it a little more exciting.
Oh boy.
So
it's not the word I would use. I used to sing for I used to sing for weddings and funerals as kind of like a regular thing. That's just something you did as a vocalist out of college.
You were a wedding singer.
I was a wedding singer, yeah. And I remember that I quickly learned that personally, just on a personal level, it's going to sound strange, I enjoyed singing at funerals and memorial services more because no one is dreaming of that day their whole life and wanting it to be just perfect and magical and all this kind of stuff. And there's usually not like a big drawn-out rehearsal you got to go to. You know your song, you show up. When it's time in the service, you do it, you get out, you get your check, and you're good, you know?
Whole different set of expectations.
Yes.
Whole different.
Yes.
But such a blessing when you can sing at a funeral.
Oh, yes.
There is such a comfort in somebody who delivers music well, which you do.
Thank you.
So, I played for both my parents' funerals. I played my flute for both my parents' funerals. So that was interesting.
I'm hearing kind of like in the ministries you've mentioned so far, just kind of like a theme of like, these are things that are really people-oriented. They're serving people. They're ministering to people in this kind of in either a comforting way, or I mean, that's maybe part of the thread I'm picking up. But I'm just wondering, like, how that has come out of your faith or your relationship with Jesus. How has your faith shaped the way that you kind of view people, treat people, how you're motivated to serve people? Like, where does it come from in your faith?
Well, in my faith, I think that if you look at Christ's example, he came to serve. He did. He set an amazing example of how to do that. It wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always pleasant for him, but he still did it. And I think that's something that we, as a community, have to learn to do better. Because it's not about us individually. It is, because Christ still died for each individual. But his heart is the church.
Yeah.
His heart is the church. And the church is a fellowship, and it's a brotherhood. And, we cannot use our earthly family's example, because that will fail us.
Oh, yeah.
And I will cry.
That's okay. That's okay.
It is such a hard lesson for most people to learn to serve without looking for gain. Because that's really what we do unconsciously. How can it serve me in some way? And you have to get to the point where you say, it really doesn't matter. It's what God wants me to do. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter the time. It's something I need to do for this person. This person needs it more than whatever I can gain back. And God will still bless me somewhere down the road. He does that. He proves that over and over again. So for me, service, I like people. I'm very social. I always have been. Drove my mother nuts for a while. That's okay. Life is like that. But I also learned a lot of hard lessons from that, because there are not many people that like to be around people who do things, a lot of things, and do them well. And that I learned a long time ago not to tell a lot of people what I do. It was just easier for me.
Yeah.
So,
is that now? It sounds like this is something that you've grown in. You said you're naturally. You naturally like to be around people, but like has the
trust level's never been there. That's what you're looking for.
Okay.
It's the level of trust.
And what about like the just serving others and giving of yourself in that way? Is that a discipline you've had to grow in, or is that something that's been natural to you? Or?
I think both.
Okay.
I think both. I think that everybody, to a large degree, is social. How much of a comfort zone that is a different matter.
Yeah.
So, and also your life experiences and how your childhood went.
Yeah.
All goes into that.
Sure.
Because if you had a life that was abused in some way, your trust level is not going to be there for people. Yet you want to be with people. So how do you find the balance in that? You learn that. You have to learn that it really doesn't matter. Your responsibility is to do what God asks you to do and let him take care of the rest. Because I've done things for people that have come back and it's not been good. They've taken things that I've done in a wrong context. Okay, that's still not my problem essentially. It is to some degree. And I have to be careful how I present something. But overall, it is still their reception of that and how they deal with it.
Yeah.
And all I can do is pray for them.
Yeah.
Because I've done what God asked me to do, and so there I am. It's not easy or fun to do that.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's challenging enough to just give of yourself and serve someone else, but then I wasn't even thinking about the scenario where someone who's doing that regularly is bound to run into times where their gift or their service is interpreted wrongly, and it like totally backlashes. That's the worst possible serving scenario.
Yeah.
So how have you, like, just over the years, because it does sound like this is not something that you just do because you have always been just naturally selfless and thinking of others, that this is really coming from a place of choice. Does it come back to what you said earlier about the example of Jesus, or like what's driving you to make the choice in that moment when you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to be received, or I don't feel like doing this, or I'm tired, or whatever? What in those times is driving you? Take the steps, serve, give, move forward.
What does God say? That's really what drives me. What does God say? Does God say, this is what you need to do? And if I know that for sure, then that's what I do. It's easier than arguing with God.
Yeah.
Because I got to tell you, if you don't do what God asks you to do, then you have to talk to God about that, which isn't always pleasant. And he usually will ask you to do it anyway. So you just do it.
Yeah. How do you go about, like, I'm always curious, the different ways that people respond to the Spirit, interpret the movements of God. What would be like some flags in your mind that the Lord is leading you specifically to serve or help a certain person? How do you kind of discern through that? Because, I mean, your energy at the end of the day is finite. We only have so much to give. At some point, you're going to become a nervous wreck and break down if you really just take every opportunity that exists.
You don't need to be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. So, you do have to be practical. And I think that God is very practical. I think that he gives people certain abilities, and he calls on you to use those abilities for the benefit of his church. And like I said, it's not always comfortable, but when you get used to listening to that voice or to that tug that says, you need to do this, you need to do this, you learn not to ignore it. And you just say, oh, okay, and you get it organized, or you do whatever you need to do in a timely fashion, and you do it. I think you just have to get used to hearing the Spirit speak to you. How he does that is individual. For me, he gives me a tug, and he says, you need to do this. You need to do this. And so, okay, I need to do that. It's not always what I would have chosen, and it's not always the easiest to accomplish in a time frame that I would be happy with.
Yeah.
But it's still something that needs to be done. So I'm now responsible to follow through. And that's, I mean, with the TLC, I don't make meals for everybody. I'd go nuts.
Yeah, sure.
I would. So it's when I get a notice that says, hey, there's meals needed for so-and-so and so-and-so, then if God says, oh, look at here, you need to do that. I mean, I know. So that's what I do. Same thing with a funeral or anything else. That's what I do.
So you've mentioned like the different ways that like you're serving, you're cooking, and you're doing the knitting, or not knitting. You're making knots.
No, we're keeping you in stitches.
Keeping you in stitches.
Come on, okay, that's right. Yes. All right, sorry. So you're doing some you're doing some kind of stitching, but all these different things. Are all of these like aptitudes that you already had, or that come naturally, or have you had to develop them over a period of time, or like just the different ways that you're applying yourself? How much of that has been like, this is what I started with, and so I'm going to use this to serve, or is there any of it that's like, I didn't know how to do A, B, or C, but I'm learning how and to serve in that way?
Yes and no. Some of it, I think, is talent that God gave me. I grew up in a household where my mom crocheted and loved to crochet. I didn't do any of it until I became an adult because my mom did it. But my mom liked to do heavier yarn. I like to do really fine yarn. I know this doesn't make any sense to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the difference.
I know. I understand that. You're a guy. I like to do finer detail, much like lace making almost.
Okay.
She was more like making Afghans.
Okay.
Okay. Does that help?
I know what an Afghan is.
I know you do. So that was the difference. And I didn't crochet until I got out of the house. And I have always loved to do handwork. So I've always liked to do, I do canted cross stitch. I do Battenberg lace, which is really a lost art. I don't tat, but I do crochet work. I do knitting. And I'm pretty much game to try about anything if I have the time and I'm inclined to try.
Okay.
So, because I have a very inquisitive mind, and if I don't know how to do something, I will either figure it out or go look it up and do it. I also put jewelry together.
Oh.
Because I like to make jewelry. So I will have somebody make the mountings. I will buy the stones at the gem show and I will put them together.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of a fun thing to do. So I do that. As far as artwork, I grew up drawing, taught myself to paint. Didn't actually take any classes until we were stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, which is in Missouri.
Okay.
I took 2 classes, and my instructor said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Well," she said, I said, "My husband, thinks I need a piece of paper to do this." And she said, "Do you sell any of your work?" And I said, once in a while. And she said, "You don't need a piece of paper." Okay. So after that, the only other class I took, I wanted to learn an old master's technique. So I did that a couple of years ago. No, it's probably been 5 years ago. And so now I do like old master's paintings.
Which I've been blessed with.
Oh, cool.
I'll show you. I know nobody else can see this.
This is just for us.
This is just.
Well, you can come to my office.
But,
stop by Dave's office.
He's got one in his office, but actually, the one that I did for the class is that. That hangs on my wall.
Oh wow!
It's a copy of a Vermeer.
Okay, so it's
black and white.
So when you said a master, what did you call it?
Old master's technique.
Old master's technique. So that is when you were learning from an old master and kind of like trying to duplicate? No. Oh, no. Okay.
Yes, but no.
I was going for something there. I was trying to connect the dots.
So what they did is they teach you this particular class, which is what I now teach, and it's been way too much fun. You teach people basic drawing skills, because if you don't have basic drawing skills, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So you need to learn to draw some things first. So most of my students will take 6 months to a year for good drawing skills.
Okay.
And then you need to learn to work a grid and how to transfer things from a picture onto a grid on a canvas, and then you paint over that.
Okay.
And you get those kinds of paintings.
Wow.
Those old masters did things like that. There's a YouTube thing called Painting the Mona Lisa, which is rather entertaining to watch.
Huh.
His finished product wasn't all that great, but the process is there. So I never envisioned myself teaching art, but I've had students now for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And they do quite well.
Wow.
And I was in an art league for a while, but I'm not really concerned with selling my work or making it a commercial thing. It would be great, but it's a hard field to get into, and I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it for fun, and I have discovered that I just have way more fun teaching people to do it. So I am finishing up 3 pictures for the church, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'll show you if I can find them.
Yeah, y'all got to go by Dave's office, because I'm like, how do I describe it? It's not what she showed me just now was not like abstract art that I'm like, I can't tell if this is good or not. It's like, no, this is like a painting of it's a black and white of a woman. Was that pencils or was that inks or like some kind of rubbing or
oil paint?
Oil paint. Okay. All right.
And this is one that's going in the children's building.
Okay. Oh, wow. Cool. Yeah. So this is like a shepherd leading sheep. And oh, man. Because
Becky asked for that. And then I have one that I just started. I I don't have it. I'm trying to think. This is one of the other ones.
Okay, so this is hands holding, it looks like the earth. Yeah. Oh, beautiful picture. Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then the other one is Jesus with children, and I just started putting color on that. So
okay. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
it'll be really neat when it's finished. So
nice.
That's, some of that is gifts from and abilities that God designed me with, and the other is how do you develop that?
Yeah.
And that's what I've done. As far as cooking, I've always liked to cook, and so I've always done that. And I have a husband who likes to eat anything that I put on the plate.
Nice.
But I just like to do those things. So some of it is discipline as far as time and where it's going to go, what I'm going to do with it. But it does give me a lot of pleasure to do.
Now, what about the circumstances where maybe you were outside of your comfort zone, outside of it being pleasurable? Have you ever had an experience where it seemed the Spirit was nudging you to serve, to give in a way that like, okay, this is going to stretch me, or maybe there's some risk involved or something like that? And if so, I'm just curious kind of how you navigated that and how it played out for you.
I don't like to speak publicly.
Yeah, you can leave specifics and leave names out and stuff.
I had to do that a couple times.
Oh, I thought you were going to. Okay, never mind. Okay,
it's okay.
Okay,
it's okay. And it's something that it's information that you have that is relevant to what was asked of you. But you kind of. I just don't like to speak in front of people. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
So it took a lot of telling myself that I was going to be fine, and that it really didn't matter in the end. I was asked to do this as a favor. I can do this. It is a favor for a person. I was honored to do it. I shared the information. I was glad when it was done. Would I volunteer to do it again? Not really.
Yeah.
But if I was asked and I felt that that's where I needed to be and what I needed to be doing, yes, I would be. But is it comfortable? Heck no.
Yeah.
No. I don't sing solos in church either.
I don't either.
No.
And I won't be asked.
No.
So.
No.
Just one more.
It's okay.
This will be easy, I think. Let me look at it.
I think
so. What if just as you reflect back on as you've learned to serve, as you develop the different capacities in which you serve, what do you think you would say to someone that senses the tug of the Lord to really engage in serving, in helping others, but they don't know what that would look like for them, or they don't think they have any like skills or talent to serve. They don't know really where to apply themselves because they don't think they're really good at anything in particular. Where would you steer them, or what would you maybe say to that kind of person?
I would probably say, what do you like to do for fun? Because the chances are pretty good if you like to do something for fun, then that's something you enjoy and you're not terribly threatened by. So if you like to do something outdoors for fun, where can you put that to work? Okay, there are women's hikes. There's yard work that can be done for other people. If you like to clean house, you can offer that as a service. You have to start somewhere where you're okay. If you don't feel there's anything that you have that's particularly wonderful, I would say start anywhere. What's something you'd like to learn to do? Is it going to be comfortable? No.
Yeah.
But is it a skill you can learn? More than likely. You just have to find somebody that's willing to help you along the way, or do your research. But the biggest thing is to just go start. If you don't start, you will never do. And the only way you learn is to do it. Just like when you learn to play an instrument, or you learn to do singing in public, or you learn to speak in public, you have to first start.
Yeah.
and it's tough to take that first step because you feel like you're falling off the cliff. And you know what? God designed you to do things for his church, and he wants you to do that. And he can't use you if you're not willing. Yeah. So start. Yeah. Just do something, because chances are real good once you do it 2 or 3 times, you're going to be okay doing it more. And you'll be willing to try something different. So what can be scary can be a really good thing.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kathleen, this has been great. I feel like there's so much more I would still like to ask you and talk about. I might have to. When did you before we recorded? You were going to tell me when that we should set up microphones for the naughty ladies and So how often do you guys meet?
We meet the second Thursday of every month.
Okay.
I do halt during the summer because people are gone and they're in and out, and people are very in and out anyway. They come and pick up yarn. They'll be gone for the month or whatever, and they'll bring shawls, and it's kind of a very fluid group. But it can get quite entertaining. I mean, we have a really good group of women that are very social. They like to talk about all kinds of things, and they just are real comfortable with each other. We get new people in periodically. We lose people periodically, but that's the nature of life.
Yeah.
Well,
life in a church.
I got to brag on Kathleen for a little bit here because, I mean, she does everything with elegance and excellence. So even as she's endured these things with people, it's amazing. When you go over to her house, I mean, you couldn't be more invited. Like, I have to be careful because there's a lot of things I could break. So I just go to her chocolate truffles because they're delicious, among many other things. But I mean, even in that, like, Kathleen is so inviting. You don't feel, even in a place where I could break a lot of things, I just feel at home. And she creates a space that's not just about knitting, but it's about being in fellowship and being loved. And so I actually really enjoy hanging out with the naughty knitters. And I don't know how to knit. They keep trying to, they keep me in stitches for sure. That is true. I'll have to steal Kathleen's line there. But it's amazing to see how when you're passionate about something and you follow the Lord's leading in that, how many people are blessed by that. I mean, that community that Kathleen has formed over the years, over 8 years. We talked the other day where we think that there's been about 1,000 shawls made.
Oh my gosh.
In 8 years. Wow. And then you think about every single one of those stitches has been made with love and prayer. And everybody who's received that has been blessed beyond measure. And yet at the same time, as those women are making them, like, they feel so blessed to do that.
We just have a lot of fun.
And they have a blast. And that space is there because Kathleen provides that space. She's obedient to God's calling in that. And then not only does she just provide that space, she makes it awesome. I mean, you have these amazing truffles that we got to eat this morning, which we're probably going to fight over the bag that's over by Arian. But even in that, it's just, it's an amazing gift to the community. And she's just an amazing example of what it means to invite people to come and see, and then just bless people through what you're passionate about. I am so grateful for Kathleen.
Yeah. And I also, just as we're wrapping up, because I almost forgot to mention that, like, I was the recipient of a prayer shawl a few years back. It was after the interview with Ginny. What were you going to say?
I was going to say it was really interesting because I started making that shawl, and God said, "This is for Pater." And I said, "Really?" He's not in any crisis that I know of. Okay. And he said, "It doesn't matter. Just make it. This is how I want it to look." Wow. And you got the recipient. You were the recipient of that shawl.
Yeah, I remember,
which is cream colored and purple stripes.
Yes, yeah. And you came to my door, and I was surprised. You gave it to me, and I asked at that time, like, because I wasn't familiar with this, what this is, and like what it's about. And if I remember correctly, at least one of the things you said was that it can be nice for some people when they are praying to have this over their shoulders. And it feels, it's reminiscent of an arm being around your shoulder. And that was really moving. And I've reserved it for very particular occasions because I don't ever want it to become like old and get too used to it, because then it loses that kind of that specialness. Yes, yeah. But when I have used it, it has been very meaningful, because I tend to be a pretty alone type of person and process things alone. But at the same time, as you said earlier, even those of us who like to be alone or process alone, we still do long for companionship and love and nurturing and relationship. And so it was this really meaningful way to kind of almost kind of manifest the reality that God has his arm around me in those moments when I'm processing things, dealing with some difficult things alone. And so it's a really if at a glance you're just like me wondering what the world is a prayer shawl for, you know?
Yeah.
Man, don't knock it till you've tried it. It's
it's a unique thing. It really is, because it has a lot of comfort in it. You know, just the physical weight of it feels good. And when you are struggling with something, even when you're not, you feel that weight, and it feels like somebody's giving you a hug. And so it's a neat thing to do.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for braving the microphone. This wasn't in front of a lot of people, so hopefully it wasn't as bad. It
wasn't as bad as talking to a whole group of people.
Good. Well, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
You're welcome. It's been entertaining.
Great. Well, that was great. I was really curious, just kind of like where we were going to go, what would kind of come out. What's maybe something that stood out from our talk with Kathleen for you?
I would say just her ability to endure through messy relational spaces. I've always just seen, I love Kathleen. I love her spunkiness, her spiciness, and yet she's got this just beautiful, compassionate heart too. And for that to be revealed even here in this space was really neat for me. It was a blessing for me to see. And it was just a reality that we all have that kind of softer side. And there's a lot of times pain attached to that. But I love that she didn't allow that pain to keep her from the blessings and the fellowship that God had for her. So that's probably what stood out to me.
Yeah, I think similarly, kind of with some overlap on what you shared, I liked getting a peek behind the heart of someone who serves a lot and gives a lot, because I am naturally a very selfish person. And so when I see someone that is so giving and so serving, I'm just like, who is this Ned Flanders alien that I do not understand? You know, like how, I mean, it just, but to learn that, like, you know, it's not all natural and it's not all fun all the time, that like there's a discipline involved in reflecting on the sacrificial life of Jesus and the way he served. And that I feel like in some ways that's encouraging to those of us who know we could be serving more, because it helps set the expectation that, you know what, I shouldn't be waiting until it just magically feels natural and wonderful. That really this is something I should expect there will be some difficulty. And then but at the same time, I love just the wisdom of her counsel in saying, you know, if you don't know where to start with something that you just naturally enjoy, that was and great. Consider how that could be applied in the way that would care for others and that the Lord might use. I mean, that's great advice. Yeah. Well, that, I think, is it for this episode of the Red Mountain Community Church podcast. A big thank you to Arian Rossi for organizing and editing the show, to Jessica Garcia for her oversight, and to the pastors and church leaders who help recommend our guests. You can follow Red Mountain Community Church on Instagram and Facebook, where you can also leave us comments and suggestions to help make the show better. Also, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on the next episode. And if by chance you want more of me blabbing on topics relevant to Christian geeks, you can check out my personal weekly show, the Christian Geek Central podcast. In the meantime, I'm Peter Franson. I forgot to tell you that, like, remind you of what your line is. So it goes, I'm Peter Franson.
I'm Dave Emigh.
Good job. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Sunday.